Hey, I'm Meir, the CEO and co-founder of PayPro Global, and today I want to talk to you about a well-understood and often-overlooked topic, how to create a good, working SaaS pricing strategy. So why am I talking to you about something that every single person here has already done? Well, it's because the chances are that 90% of the people watching this have done it once when they started their business and never really gave it a second thought since. There are a lot of different methods and strategies out there. Using the right combinations of models and tactics could drastically improve your sales, while sticking with a strategy that doesn't complement your product will simply result in lost revenue. So why would you listen to me? Well, for the past 15 years, me and the great people at PayPro Global have served thousands of SaaS companies. We provided companies with platform to support their SaaS business models, by far the most powerful, dynamic system on the market today. From startup launching their first product to established one pivoting their business model. Again and again, we realized that a lot of companies were missing opportunities over SaaS strategy. By the end of this presentation, you'll know much more about the most common and the most effective SaaS pricing methods and strategies, how to combine them correctly. With that in mind, let's start with cost-plus pricing. In software, no one really mentioned using cost-plus strategy publicly. And while it's more common in smaller companies, it's actually used in large companies too. I personally know a large cybersecurity firm that use it, but it's much more common really in the hardware. For example, take Apple, which everyone knows here. They actually take a 30% profit margin and put it on top of their cost for their physical product. It guarantees to cover the cost, and it leaves them a really consistent profit for reinvestment or distribution. Calculating cost plus pricing is pretty easy. All you need to do is work out all your expenses involved in creating and delivering your SaaS. When you've got the total number, simply add your profit margin on top. As a pricing method, it won't work for long term alone, but it gives you a valid starting point. It can later be easily developed into more complex and effective strategies. While cost plus pricing gives you a better understanding of your own business, it does, however, leave you blind to your target audience and the competition. Understanding your competition is a good way to judge your product and pricing. Finding where you sit on the market, as well as helping you recognize if there is a place for internal cost optimization when you see a low-price competitor with a similar priced product and a similar offering, and it just doesn't add up. A lot of times an effort goes into research with value-based pricing, making it one of the hardest models to use. But it's really worth the effort. The concept of value pricing is pretty simple. Find out how much your customers are willing to pay when it comes to solving their need, and just put your price there. Just the fact that you know who your clients are doesn't mean really that you'll know what price to put. You have to conduct two researches. The first one is how much value your customer really see in the features, functionalities, and everything that separates you from your competitions. And the second one is really to observe your competition and figure out what differentiates you from them and who's the closest one to you in the market. Now, if you think there isn't really a big difference between your products and your competitor products, well, just wait a bit, we're gonna get to the next one soon. But for this methodology, if you really feel you have a value sweet spot, then you're gonna do really great with the value-based strategy. I'm guessing most of you know Drift, the sales and marketing automation company. They are a great example for value-based pricing, really well done. Sure, they mix a few methods, you can see some freemium models there which I'll mention later on. For now, let's just focus on two things that Drift has realized when they were thinking about their pricing strategy, and they're just brilliant. The first one, they understood that their product gave a massive value to their customers. They found that most of them would be large businesses and they're looking for their core product, and this is what they want to use. Well, and then they also figure out that there is the enterprise ones that are just gonna pretty much take everything they have to offer. The second thing is not a single one of their competitors could offer everything that they did. The product is just superior by far. The result is just incredible. Almost 100 million in yearly revenue. And if we would segment them a few years ago, they would be under chatbots or live chat companies, which we know never gets anywhere near these numbers. And it makes you wonder, how much value can they provide that they allow themselves to charge their customers north of $500 and still do so well? That's exactly a company that can use value-based pricing strategy and do well with it. Now, since value-based pricing strategy is all about the customer, you'll be spending a lot of time working and updating your buyer personas. If you remember, you made them long ago when you did your market fit research, hopefully you did. Assuming that your customers and product are ready for this pricing model, it can really end up being amazingly profitable. Also, as an added incentive, doing things the right way just from the start means that the data you acquire can be really, really useful later on. I mean, you can use it for promotions, you can use it for complementary item pricing, and anything you'd want to do, you're going to have all the data you need ready for you. I mean, value-based pricing is really a marathon, it's not a sprint. But while it takes time to see real results, when results will come, they're going to be great. And each element is really customer-focused. It's time-consuming to do, and it's expensive to do. But nothing will really provide you more profit and more revenue if that's the pricing strategy that fits your product. While value-based pricing will attract growth, it can't really sustain it alone. I mean, not for too long. This is where you really need to make sure that around your value-based product, there is a really good sales team and marketing team, because it's up to them to spread the word about the value. The product will sell itself once someone tries it. But again, a good, strong marketing team to spread the word, to mention the value, is a mandatory thing to have around a value-based product. So let's consider the competition. Competitor pricing is one of the most popular and common methods around. Chances are you're entering a competitive market with your SaaS product. That's when competitor-based pricing really comes handy. It helps people to get a good feel of what they could be or should be charging. And let's be honest, most people look at their competition before they even starting the project. Why? Well, because it just makes sense. You want to know how much money you can make. And what about your product then? If you don't have an edge over your competition, then it's safe and a reliable method. Just keep your pricing close to whatever you are familiar with and whatever your customers are familiar with. Still, when I say an edge, I mean, you have to look at it from a customer perspective, not from your perspective. Whatever you think has value doesn't really mean that your customers see as something worth paying extra for. If we're going to take a look at antivirus companies, the software prices, then you would notice the individual plan, the one that, the B2C sales where customers are buying, and most of them have no idea which antivirus is better than the other one, they're going to be pretty much the same. And I mean, really close to each other. You could see on the slides, it's going to show up now maybe $2 or $3 difference. But when you're going to take a look on their enterprise product and companies who actually understand which one works better, what the advantages of one product versus the other, the pricing can range in tens of thousands of dollars differences between the low end and the high end. Why? It's very simple. The customers in an enterprise just tend to understand the difference between what is offered. If you're coming into a crowded market or with an unproven product, then setting your prices lower than the competitors is always a good tool to gain some users. When you can't beat them on a product or on reputation, on a brand awareness, just beat them on the price until your brand gets more known, you get a bit more traction, and then you can lift your prices up. Now, to play safe, the best move is just to find the balance between the cost and the value of your product. Of course, taking a look into your brand awareness. And then when you look on your product and your competition product and the pricing change, you should be able to find the right balance of where you'll make the most out of it. Competitor pricing is simple and quick to implement, helping you to get your SaaS out there, making sales, aligning your price with products already in the market, makes it a credible option to the customers. And it's an easy thing to scale once the market start changes. Now, the disadvantages, there's always a chance that your competitor could be just a total idiot. I mean, they'll be possibly pricing their product way too high or way too low. And then you're gonna end up copying their mistake. So it's really important, so you won't end up losing revenue. Still, do the right research, understand what your customers are willing to pay, and don't just look at your competition and blindly copy them. In addition, unless you're in a niche or a massive company and you fight with other giants, there's just a good chance your prospect just never heard about you. And as well, you just never heard about your competition. So using them as a guide for pricing is just pointless. Most chances that customer arriving on your website isn't even aware you have a competition or there are an alternative for your product out there. Usage-based pricing recently becoming more and more common method in the SaaS industry. It's a simple functional. I mean, use more, pay more, use less, pay less. So the key here is actually to work out what value the customer wants to get from your product, and then you charge them per use basis. With this model, usage can be based on a lot of different factors, like the amount of transactions, the consumption of bandwidth, or number of API calls. So Pretty much there is a lot of consumption units and you're charging according to the customer usage. Email service provider ConvertKit is a great example of usage-based pricing done well. They provide a scale feature, essentially a drag scaling area, in the product page where the user can see the cost based on the number of subscribers they're looking to have. Now, since many customers see fluctuation with the amount of emails and communication they need, committing to a certain number, a certain plan where you pre-buy it is not really the ideal method. Now, ConvertKit, they did something pretty cool. So the moment you pass the plan that you purchased, they automatically only upgrade you to the next tier. And they have quite a lot of tiers, so it's not going to be a massive jump in payment. Another great thing is that even small companies with a lower budget that a few years ago just couldn't afford a tool as ConvertKit, now can go and pay per use basis. Essentially what it means is that for ConvertKit, they're going to have smaller companies who might grow later and generate serious revenue, as well as not going to look for alternative. And for the customers, they're just going to have a premium, large companies tools that they can really boost their business with. The good thing about having many small customers also for ConvertKit is that you really get a lot of feedback. If you were selling to enterprise or large businesses, you'd have 10 or 20 or 30 customers. But when you allow access to smaller companies and they're going to start using your service, the amount of feedback you get, assuming you're a customer-centric company, would really boost the quality of the product. But it's not all that great. So there is a disadvantage for this method as well. While it's going to convert to you more users into paying customers, from financial perspective, it will generate less revenue than a fixed rate pricing. The reason for it is that essentially you're providing endless amount of packages according to usage. And there is no scenario which is more profitable in fixed plans where someone will be using half of the package and still going to pay for a full amount of it. Now, at the end of the day, the only way to be sure if this method really works for your business, if it really converts more and generating more revenue than a fixed plan would do, is just testing. You have to really keep on testing, and that's right for this method and for any other one which I've mentioned earlier today. Let's talk about tier pricing. Tier pricing is fairly easy and you all know it and you all seen it. So what you do, you take the product, you separate it into 3 or 4 groups which differ each other by the amount of features inside, and then you price it accordingly. Clearly, the more features you have, the price would go higher. Now, what's nice about this method is that it's very dynamic. It doesn't matter if you have 10 buyer personas or 20 buyer personas. You group them into 3 or 4 main groups and you figure out which one would fit to which amount of value and feature you're going to put in each tier. And clearly, the more features it has, the more you're going to price for it. Let's take Zoho, for example, the CRM company. What they did is they combined 2 strategies. They took the tier pricing, where they created a few tiers and put the features which suits to each type of customers out of their buyer personas. And then they also took user-based pricing. And that means that for each tier, they'll be charging the customer according to the number of users that are going to be using this tier. HubSpot is even a better example than Zoho. And the reason for it, they went for the tier pricing, but they didn't take the user-based pricing. So whatever you're going to be paying for that tier, it's unrelated to the amount of users that's going to be using their product. And why is it better really? Because every survey out there, and please go and read it, will always put user-based pricing model as the worst one. People just hate paying per users. For many companies, it just makes no sense at all, because imagine that you have a company with a team of 30 people, but they only need to do one small task on the software. Now, why would you be paying 30 times for something you're barely using? So from that perspective, HubSpot cracked it really well. And I think that by doing so, they're actually addressing a larger audience. So why do we really like the tier-based pricing? It's very simple. From a company perspective, there is no other pricing methodology that will provide you a more consistent revenue forecast. And we all know that every company would like to make good planning based on a solid prediction of their business. The freemium business model has gained a huge amount of popularity, becoming one of the most widely known and used pricing methods in SaaS for a good reason. In case there's a person in this room or in this planet which is not familiar with the concept, well, this one is just for you. Let's go. So, the freemium is actually an evolution of the free trial that was provided in traditional downloadable software. Essentially, the whole idea is that you let your customer try the product, and once they like it, they make a decision to buy it. Probably the most known case study for freemium that everyone bumped into when they were reading if that's a good thing or a bad thing is Dropbox. Dropbox did something very cool. First, they provided 2 gigs of storage to their users, and that was quite a lot at the time. And then just for $10, they would upgrade you now to 1,000 gigs. And if this wasn't sexy enough, now they also gave you 500 megabytes for each one of your friends which you refer to, but not for the paid version, for the free version. That distributed the product widely, and this is why they are where they are today. Now, if you are going now to the Dropbox website and you're going to look on the pricing, make sure you look on the consumer pricing, because the business pricing strategy, on the other hand, is just terrible. I mean, when it comes to individual plans, they're nothing short of brilliance. But do not take any ideas from the business strategy. It's just terrible. Still, if I would have to hand out the best freemium awards for 2020, the COVID year, it goes without a question to Zoom. I mean, Zoom were just brilliant. They gave a freemium version for all of their users where they can use 40 minutes worth of call. Think about it. 40 minutes is not just a random number. Most meetings, most conference calls would be around 1 hour, which means that by giving 40 minutes of free version, you make sure that the heavy users of the product gonna have to upgrade it. With that, it's more than enough for the quick calls to understand that it's a good product, a good service, and as well as additional features that will be used for you as a business users. It's just the perfect package in terms of distribution of freemium. Another great thing about freemium is that it gives you a chance to lock your customers with a functional product that provides value. While they're locked with you, they're not shopping around for your competitor's product, and when time comes to upgrade them, you know you have them. However, if you want to make this strategy successful, you need to make sure some requirements are met. The first one is that you need to make sure your product have enough substance in it, because you won't be able to create 2 versions, or you're going to end up with a free version which has no value and no one wants to use, or a full version which is practically not that different from the free version, and then no one would see a good reason to upgrade. The second thing is that you have to make sure that the cost of maintaining users is not too high, because keep in mind, in the freemium users, you're going to have far bigger database than on your paid users, and the income comes only from the paid users should be enough for you to both maintain the free users and the paid users, as well as finance your marketing and any other expenses you have for your business in the future. And now, before we finish, I'm going to give you another 4 great tips of how to boost any strategy you chose from the ones above. The first one is localization. And no, I'm not referring to a couple of more payment methods, and I'm not referring to localizing your checkout pages, and I'm not talking about the currency. Sure, these are the basic things, but I'm talking about regional pricing. If you're going to a saturated market, you want to have a lower pricing. If you're going to a market which cannot afford your base pricing, you want to enter with a lower pricing. So make sure that your pricing is also set to work on the strategic markets you're planning to go into. The second one is anchor pricing. The whole idea in anchor pricing is when customer is looking on the 3 plans you provided, you go for the higher plan to be with just a bit more value and way too expensive. The idea behind that is making the customer believe that the middle price, which you are planning to sell to him anyway, is the best one, rather than making him wonder if you want to purchase or not. The third one is churn pricing. Churn pricing started way in the 80s to be more popular. And the whole idea is that understanding that the human brain look on numbers from left to right. Essentially, pricing something as $29.95 rather than $30 makes a whole difference, because 2 or 3 are the first numbers that your customers are seeing. And you'll be surprised for B2C purchases how much difference can that make. The last one is the center stage tactic. The idea of the tactic is coming from an understanding of customers and consumers, knowing they will always look out of the 3-tier options, assuming that the middle one is the best they're going to get in terms of value and in terms of pricing. When you're setting up the 3 tiers, always make sure the middle one, the one the customers will be focusing on, is really something you're going to end up buying. I really hope you learned a few new things, or at least generated some new ideas for your business by us revisiting the topic. Please feel free, if you would like to get an ebook or any question you have on the topic. We pretty much have quite a lot of information which we would love to share. Other than that, I really hope that next year we will be meeting face to face. Have a good 2021 and good luck with your SaaS pricing strategy.